very successful individual. Don't think he knows the Lord. I don't know, but it's a biblical principle. So he says, great people serve others something of value. Success is not just about me. It means serving other people in some way. So be able to focus on others. Put yourself in their shoes. See their perspective and bend over backward to deliver something that has value for them. In return, you will get a rich life. He didn't say riches, right? A rich life. Because this is a biblical principle, to serve. Jesus came not to be served, but to serve others, right? And to give his life a ransom for many. And so service. What's the key to life? Service. It's another way of saying love, right? Live sacrificially for Christ, right? His body, his mission, which means also serve and love your wife and your children. It means true leadership. A true man can serve, can live sacrificially. That's not wimpy. That's unselfish. It means that he's a strong man. True biblical leaders have faithful servant's heart. They have a faithful servant's heart. What do I mean by partly that? In life, in ministry, means that you don't always have to be in control. You don't always have to dictate what happens. You just have to put yourself under the control of Christ. So it may not go the way you want, but it may be the right thing, right? And it may not be the way you would do it or the timing, but you just submit to him. You trust that God is working the situation. A true leader has that servant's heart that says, okay, Lord, I'm ready for whatever ride you want me to go on. Is this a slow pace ride? Is this going to be a roller coaster? Is this going to be, I'm ready for it, right? And servant leaders walk in faith because they might not receive equal treatment. Life is not fair, and especially not fair when you're a leader. When you're a leader, do not expect it to be fair. And you won't be disappointed. You're never going to get from the world, let's not say never. Rarely do you get from the world exactly what you put in. Your pay and your praise will come from God. So you may sacrifice a lot. If you think there's reciprocity, if you think it's always going to be returned and it's always going to be there, you're not a leader. Or you're going to fail as a leader. When you give to your wife, when you give to your family, what you give to your kids, they're never going to pay you back in monetary value. Some will, right? They'll make it and they'll want to buy their parents a house or a car or something like that. But that's not where you're doing it, right? And so it's the same thing with leadership. You might not get recognition for the things you're doing. Very few people might know, except God knows. But if you go into ministry, and here's what happens, you start to think, well, no one appreciates me. They're not telling me thank you after a service or after I did that, or that I came and lost sleep and opened up the church and went the extra mile and did a funeral or did other things and never got, any pay or even gas money or, these other things. And on top of that, there's electrical costs and cleaning costs and other things and my time and effort, and there was nothing. If that's going to be your attitude, then you're going to burn out fast. Because you're going to feel like you're being used. So having a true servant's heart helps you overcome that. And let me tell you, this is one of the reasons why people drop out, why people stop serving in ministry, or why they struggle with even family. Oh, my wife doesn't appreciate me enough. Maybe not. But a godly man serves. A godly man steps up to the plate. How often do you have to take one for the team? for as long as you're on the team. Right? And most critics, though, the people who criticize you, they lack faith when developing leaders while they make mistakes, right? So when God is developing a leader, and people don't understand this, they don't, but it's okay, right? They criticize Moses. Moses was a spectacular person in Scripture that God used in magnificent ways. The power that came through Moses is unmatched to anybody except for when Jesus was on the earth. The miracles, the authority, the plagues, those kind of things that came through Moses, right? But he was so often criticized. And did he make some mistakes? Yeah. He did. So will everybody. Because God uses people who are imperfect, who they're not gods, right? They're not all powerful. Leaders are not all powerful. They're not all knowing. They don't have endless wisdom, endless energy, endless discernment, and perfect purity and perfect, logic, and they're gonna make mistakes. So you're gonna get critics. You're gonna get critics. Servant leaders must use their influence to benefit others, including critics. Number 3 here. Servant leaders must use their influence to benefit others, including the critics. You're like, but they don't give me room to fail. They just think I'm held up on this pedestal and they criticize everything I do. But then if you turn around and do the same thing to them, don't give them areas to fail. Right? You don't give them, because it's personal when you feel attacked. When's the time that you stop helping them or benefiting them? What? When they become a church bully? Remember we talked about church bullies? When they're hindering other people in growing in Christ, then you have to handle the situation, right? Look, every time when Jesus got flaming mad, it's always when somebody else was hindering people from coming to him or true worship, right? That's when he would get mad. That's when he would, have the eyes of flames, right? The daggers coming out, because that's where spiritual harm comes in. That's where you draw the line. If it's just you, but it's like cutting off others from, let's say, you're leading a ministry and they're coming against you to where others start to come against you, well, then they're hurting the whole body, right? Then you have to address it. If they've got some criticism, they want you to do it a different way or whatever, it doesn't mean you have to do it their way, but you can tolerate it, you can love on them, you can train them, you can sacrifice for them to pull them up, right? And sometimes those critics will become some of the best people on your team later on because they understand, oh my gosh, and they had such patience with me, right? And that's also why when guys come in, the very first starting off, they're like, Pastor Scott, why didn't you correct that guy in shepherd school early on? And he said this, and that's like a heresy or whatever. Because I got 2 years with them, right? I have 2 years. I'm here to serve them. I'm not here to pounce on them. They'll learn over time. They'll learn. So, be free from serving only when you get a positive response from people. Okay? It doesn't mean you are a doormat. It doesn't mean you take abuse. That's not right. They should respect the Lord and they respect you in the place they put you. But you're always going to have critics. You're always going to have people but serve them. Love them, serve them until you can't. 1 Corinthians 9:19 says, for though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant of all that I might win the more. Right? I'm free from all men. I'm not their puppet, but I'm also here to serve them all. Right? So they can criticize, they can do all these things, they can say, hey, your ministry needs to do this, you need to do that, or whatever. Okay, great, fine. I'm still here to serve him. I'm still here to do that. But I'm free from serving in the sense of they control me. So I'm free from all that. But I've made myself a servant that they might benefit and grow closer to the Lord. And there's a difference there. Biblical leaders have a teachable spirit. Teachable spirit. Teachable leaders seek wise counsel. That's part of being a servant. The great leaders, no matter how experienced they are, no matter how much they know, they're willing to learn something new, even from a subordinate. It don't matter who they might be learning from, as long as it's good and it's biblical. They'll often ask, good leaders will often ask the opinion from other spiritual leaders. They like hearing input. They're not overly defensive, and therefore they're teachable. If you're overly defensive, and you may know that it's totally off the wall where they're coming from, and you're like, I know where you're going with this, and this is totally unbiblical, and you're thinking, you guys, you don't know, you've not been trained, you don't know the principles of the greater good, right? You still have compassion, you still listen, and you don't take immediate offense, right? They don't know what they don't know. You guys are going to be trained better than 90% of the pastors on the planet when you finish. And because of that, don't become defensive in that, where you don't know. Okay, they don't know. Who's going to teach them? Who's going to show them? Who's going to grow them? Well, that's you. If they refuse, they refuse. But don't let that stop you, because you got to be above church hurt. You got to be above the critics. You have to be above that. Not above like you don't hear it, you don't listen, you don't want. You've got to be able to overcome that quickly. And get back in the game, right? It's the same thing if like you're in any sport or whatever, you make a mistake but you got to get back in the game. You got to cover the next play, right? You're fighting, you take a punch. You can't just stay covered up the rest of the time, overly defensive. You got to get back in the fight. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, slow to be self-defensive. And 2, teachable leaders use criticism as a learning tool when possible. Rather than taking it to heart, analyze it and go, is there a point here? Can there be something made better? Or it may not be. The person just doesn't have the wherewithal. They don't have the knowledge. They've never done this. Most people who are going to criticize you have never run that ministry. They've never been a parent of your child. They just don't have the experience. They don't have the know-how. They think they do. They don't, right? Most. But every now and then they're going to hit on a gem. Going to be something that's good. Did Jethro ever take 1 million people out of slavery and move them through the desert? No, but he had some good advice for Moses, right? Hey, you're the vending machine model, Moses. You're going to get burnt out. What are you doing? This is not good. Raise up these leaders, and he chose 70 leaders. Effective leaders, servant leaders, teachable leaders will become smarter and better ministers after a failure or receiving criticism. Can you become a more effective and better, seeking to be at a higher level of being equipped? Because you take it kind of like I've come over the years, it could still be painful, somebody criticizing you, but I've taken it to kind of mean and look at it almost like if I was software and I received this attack, is there a vulnerability there, right? Is this a virus? Is there a virus I need to get rid of? Are they right? But is there something where I need to shore up systems or attitude or something else, right? Because if that person can see it and criticize it, and maybe it's true, then maybe the enemy can find that, right? Because the enemy scrutinizes us too. So I take it as, well, maybe I can just shore things up, right? That's just a way for me to exercise greater protection in that. Turn to my rebuke, it says in Proverbs 20:23, surely I will pour out my spirit on you and I will make my words known to you. Biblical leaders are accountable to God on how they lead. This is part of service. Accountable to God on how they lead. Leaders assume responsibility for leading. So I asked a pastor today at UNM, one of the questions came up, why do Christians fall away, right? Why when they made a commitment to the Lord, it doesn't seem like they should fall away. And it brings up the parable of the sower, right? Those are the reasons they fall away. The enemy takes the word from their heart. There are those who don't have really roots and persecution comes up and then they wither and go. And there are those that the world comes and chokes out the pleasures and worries and wants of the world, right? And he says it. And then on good soil, it remains. So you got to always take care of the good soil. But there's one other thing that came up with a discussion that somebody brought up afterwards, and they go, why do you think leaders fall then? Is it the same thing? And I said, it's the same thing plus one more that also sometimes is with the regular crowd. And especially when you get knowledge, you don't think that God's warnings apply to you. You're the special one. You're the one who, I know, and I'm better, and I can handle it, and I can, right? And leaders, these leaders that fall think that they're just a step above. They're just a little bit elitist. That these warnings, these things, this attitude, they can rise above it. They're just a step better, and it doesn't apply to them because they've got things under control. And then, boom, enemy takes them down. The enemy takes them down. And they stop being accountable. And they stop assuming responsibility for leading. And I've told you, one of the reasons I love shepherd schools, it keeps me accountable. If I'm teaching these things, right, I've also got to follow them. But when I'm teaching them and I'm emphasizing these things, it also encourages me. And I grow every year in these areas as we cover these character issues. Then as I'm coaching, I'm sending guys out. And I saw this with Pastor Chuck, how many guys he would talk to, how many guys he would restore and try to put back in leadership. We did that with Calvary Chapel, West Covina, and then Golden Springs, and guys would fall, and then we would try to restore them and go through. And I got to see firsthand. It's really one of the reasons why we emphasize this in class. Firsthand. It was never about knowledge. Well, that guy didn't know enough. That guy didn't go to enough school. We put him out there too early. It was never the immaturity in knowledge. It was also always the immaturity in character. And the immaturity in character, one of the worst attributes in there, they weren't teachable in it. They thought they knew it all, and they thought they were above. They thought they were a cut above. That it would never grab them. So they assume responsibility for leading, which includes an acute sense of accountability to yourself, to God, to family, right? Including workplace, and especially in ministry. especially in ministry. Proverbs 16:6, in mercy and in truth, atonement is provided for iniquity, and by the fear of the Lord, one departs from evil. It's a respect of God. Fear of the Lord and respect for God is that loyalty to God that says, I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to take your name in vain. I'm not going to hurt others by doing this. Secondly, leaders learn to trust that God can redeem situations, because sometimes we will fail. We're imperfect people. So we are going to have failures. We are going to mess up. We are going to make wrong choices. We are going to sin. And in that, learn that God can redeem situations. Now, there are some in ministry, there are some sins that are going to put you back, and you're never going to gain back what you lost. To me, it's like that. It's like a diamond, right? Diamonds are valuable. You get that 1 carat diamond or whatever, and it's worth a lot. But then there's that sin and there's that fissure in it. There's that crack in it. And you've got to cut it down. And now you still got a diamond. It's still made out of the same thing. But it's not near the value of what it was before. And so those guys who really mess up, it's rare that they can get back to full usefulness, full potential where they were before. It's always going to dog him, and it did for David. And David had endless issues with his family, right? Even his kids rebelling against him because of his own sins. You know, then Absalom, you have incest going on, you have all these things that are happening there. Trust God to redeem situations. So if you've got character and you're walking, your situations and the thing you're doing can be minimized, God will minimize it for you. And he'll cover for you. And he'll heal and he'll teach and because he works with fallen people. Right? Why do you do that? Why do you work with fallen people? There's got to be a better way. Why are you choosing us, Lord? Why are you choosing me? I don't know. But he's like, I like doing that. I'm like, well, you like big challenges, don't you? Okay. Leaders advance others to spiritual maturity. Leaders advance others to spiritual maturity. There's such pleasure in that, though, right? Because the amount of spiritual insight and wisdom that you give away only multiplies. And multiplies in that student, in that child, in that coworker. And each time you do it, it affirms things in your heart. You tend to learn more when you teach or give it away, right? You tend to learn more. You can never outgive God in that area. And so give it away. Leaders train others to lead, right? Give it away. It shall not be among you, but whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. Train others to lead, but train them to be servants. If you're training true servants, leadership's much easier to give away. Sometimes people fear other people, right? They fear strong leaders. They won't raise up strong leaders. And these are things we started off with, right? Are you a level 8 leader, level 6 leader, or whatever? A level 6 leader doesn't want level 5 and 6 and 7s around him because that's threatening. They want level 1 and 2, 3, because they can kind of dominate. They're the big dog. But then that's as far as your ministry will go. That's as far as your company will go. Because it'll only go so far as the people and manpower that you have. So you want to always be leveling yourself up and leveling other people, pulling other people up. If you can, get those people around you who have greater expertise or greater in that area. Right? And if you're building them up, then the whole thing will explode in a good way. In a good way. Leaders always labor at discipling a replacement. Duplicate yourself. That was all of second quarter. Duplicate yourself. These are the things that work in life and work in ministry. Always be training somebody to take your place. Well, what about being a father? Always be training your eldest child. That they could step in, that they could do the very thing you're doing. Why? Because they're going to be parents sometimes too. At some time or another, right? You're still duplicating yourself. You're still duplicating yourself. 6, leaders recognize and acknowledge the success of others. Leaders always recognize and acknowledge the success of others. Jesus even says, well done, good and faithful servant, right? Said to the Roman centurion, man, I've never seen such faith, not even in all of Israel. This guy who says, Lord, you don't even need to come under my roof, right? I understand your authority. I am a man of authority. I send and people go and I draw them in and they come in and whatever I say they do. So you just need to say it. And Jesus is like, I've never seen such faith. He wasn't doing that, in a bad way. Build people up. Extol what's good about them. I guarantee you that most of those people who hear that don't hear very much of that. Most people aren't built up. And when they are, they thrive in that area, and they're so thankful for that person that they'll go the extra mile for that ministry, for that place, for that employment. D, unworthy goals. Reject bottom line mentality. I know we need results, but bottom line mentality can lead to compromise. Well, we just need to make more profit. Okay, profit's good, but then are we going to start shortchanging the customers, right? It's the same size box, but we're putting a little less product on there. But we're going to put on the box, may have space due to settling. And you're like, 3/4 of the box is air. I mean, how much settling do we get out of that, right? That's the bottom line mentality that is damaging. Bottom line mentality for some churches is we just need butts in the seats. And so we'll teach very simply, we'll teach just felt needs. Not so much on sin and everything. We're just on marriage, just on prosperity, just on these things. And yeah, you can fill the seats, but then you shortchange the people coming. But it's led to compromise. That type of thing with just the bottom line mentality that parents may do with their kids of, well, I just need you to get those good grades. Are they becoming a good person? Are those classes they're taking them towards their destiny in Christ? The bottom line mentality has to be examined by the greater good, the greater need, the greater point of life and of living, right? 2, leaders reject the expectation of perfection. Expectation of perfection, perfectionism. Don't do this with your kids either, right? Not perfectionism. So as a church grows, you usually see that. And okay, some of the people who used to lead worship, well, you're just not good enough, so you're not going to be up there. Well, then something should be done to pull them up. But if you're only going for perfectionism, we're giving the wrong impression for people in the audience, and then also people in the audience begin to expect that. So the criticism comes because they're used to seeing high-level production, not high-level work of God. High-level work of God is often messy, right? Ministry's messy. Oh, I can't believe you had that guy up there and he said this week. And it's like, so what? Who got hurt, right? Who got damaged? I can't believe they played an elevation song. Oh my gosh, I know half our church went to hell last week because they heard the elevation song. I know I'm stepping on some toes, right? But that's the perfectionism of, if somebody's saying like, okay, they're going to listen to the song, then they're going to go and watch a sermon out of the 15 maybe really bad sermons that came out of a certain church, and out of those 15, that's the one they're going to watch, and they're going to leave your church, and they're going to go to that church, and they're going to backslide until they've lost their salvation or something, right? Like, it just doesn't work that way. On top of that, you're putting the sin of the parent on the child, right? If a pastor says something, just doesn't mean the worship leader's done it. If the worship leader's done something, call him out. But again, if there truly is a line and people are being hurt and they're falling because of it, then yeah, cut it off, right? But the ideal of perfectionism, that he has to be a perfect person to lead worship, that's a facade. That's fakey. Nobody's perfect. You have to be a perfect person to lead or perfect. Should we always raise the bar? Absolutely. But you know what I'm talking about in perfectionism, right? And so it becomes a performance. And so then there's critics of the church, and they go from church to church to church, and they never can find the right church because they've been taught perfectionism. Has to be a perfect performance, perfect sermon, or whatever. Oh, I got bored at that sermon. Well, great, right? Not everyone's going to be killer. Not everyone's going to be exactly what you need that week. But you can learn something from everyone, right? And so the idea of perfectionism that comes in destroys community. It destroys God raising up leaders. Because I can never have that guy in the pulpit. Barely can have him do a home study because he's going to get criticized to death. Because God forbid he says something wrong, right? You don't want perfectionism. You want moving towards better and the greater good, but you can't reach perfection. Only God's going to be perfect. Perfectionism leads us to concentrate more on appearance than people. More on appearance than people. It's about the facade. It's about the lighting. It's about the smoke effects. It's about production quality. Those are all nice and good. But if we work on appearance and on the appearance of what is good, a false standard, you lose people. You guys know I wouldn't be able to teach in any seminary that is with the standardized teaching because my master's degree wouldn't be good enough, right? And it came basically, I don't have a degree because the school when I went to is unaccredited. Okay, it was equivalent to a master's. I actually have equivalent close to a PhD, but I don't have the paperwork behind it. But I could not teach in there. Somebody asked again, I think I brought it up. Somebody asked, "Oh, you need to be over there teaching at Trinity." I go, "I can't. Perfectionism wouldn't allow me to teach something like that." Okay, that's the problem though, right? What about a guy who's out there and he's been in the mission field for 30, 40 years and he's been to all these other things? He could do a little guest speaker thing. Could he be a professor? No. But who should be teaching a class on multiculturalism and missions? The guy who's out there doing it, right, for 40 years. That's the guy who should be doing it. That's the guy who should be leading class. Look for aptitude and not necessarily expertise, right? Yes, it would be nice if there was great proficiency in it, but you can teach proficiency. You can teach them how to be competent, right? You want more aptitude, a willingness, and character than anything else. Than anything else, right? Anything else. We've talked about that. You must give space for people to fail, space for people to fall. If you're holding, you want to hold a high standard, but that doesn't mean that when somebody fails that standard, that they're done. Right? So you hold the high standard by pulling them up through the failures. And you're going to learn a lot more from failures than successes. And so the idea behind a standard is that there's a quality of process. How could I put that? You know how they say enjoy the journey, right? There's a quality of process that gets you to the standard, and that quality of process includes there should be some failures, honestly. If there's not, praise God, guys really got it dialed in, right? But if there's some failures there, it's good. It keeps people humble. It allows a teachable spirit. It allows learning. It allows for there to be this wisdom and insight by the school of hard knocks, and then to have compassion on other people who might fail in the same areas. If somebody just moves right through and they have no failures or whatever, they're very intolerant of people who might stumble around a little bit. And then in that, it's very hard to then train people and lead them up, because who wants to be someplace where the standard is high, but a place where if you are working towards that, but you stumble here and there, that you get eliminated. Well, then I'm not going to. Remember, if you dominate too much, then people won't take risks. They won't innovate. They won't move forward. And don't be afraid of the work that comes with allowing failure, right? Ministry is messy. And don't be afraid of the work that comes with failure. You're going to have to clean up a lot, and that's why you have it's full circle. That's why you have a servant's attitude. That's why you serve. And that's one of the values that you can give people is you're serving them in their shortcomings, in their failures, in their criticisms, in whatever it is, till they get over the hump, till they get there, till they start growing in that. And then once you get that, then along with character, you've got individuals that are going to be so well used by the kingdom of God. They are going to be, well, I think of them as the elite of the elite, right? You guys are, you're not trained, somebody used the thing where you're like Navy SEALs. You haven't gone through the fire like that so much. You've gone through some spiritual warfare. But this isn't just easy boot camp either. What you've gone through has put you in like the top 10% of really usable and workable information, right? That you immediately can apply, that you can adapt and overcome, that you can conquer, that you can go forward on the missions God has given you. And I expect a high rate of success because you've grown so much. And you can't be afraid then of allowing other people to take the time to get there. I know churches will have, discipleship programs. It's a 6-week program or a 9-week program or whatever that is. That's great. The reason this is life transformative is you've committed to these 2 years, right? And in those 2 years, that allows God to do tremendous heart surgery, tremendous recalibration of the thinking and the mind, right? Tremendous character transformation that just can't be done in 6 weeks. It just can't. It can be started, but it can't happen that way. And so the power of service and serving one another and serving each other for lunch, and you're like, Pastor Scott, are you done? Because, hey, we got break coming up here. But there's just a power in that, transformative power. You guys are never going to be the same, and the people around you are never going to be the same because the impact that Christ has had on you over these 2 years. Let's pray. Father, thank you, Lord, for these guys. Thank you for the generosity they have and their attentiveness. Thank you for their toughness and their hearts of service. May you bless them right now as they partake in some food and fellowship in Jesus' name. Amen. going into the land of promise, right? Land of promise. Finally make it there. We're at the Jordan. Guess what? There's giants over there. There's giants over there, man. Do you push through or not? Right? Do you push through or not? 10 of the 12 said no. They didn't believe what God had done in the past because it became more and more personal. See, when God wiped out the Egyptians, it was with plagues. Then it was with the Red Sea. Then they had to do more. You had to step into the Jordan before he split the waters, right? And you got attacked by Moab, and some of the people fought. But now everybody's going to have to go in, and you're going to have to take your allotment, and there's going to be giants in the land. Do you push through? This separates real leaders from those who will just surrender at that time. What's in your DNA? And so I call this push or persist. You persist over time. There's no such thing as an overnight success. It takes years of preparation. God gave him preparation. Leading into the promised land, there's giants over there. Yeah, but he just wiped out the world economic and the world military power in Egypt. You don't think he can take on the giants, right? We get there and we think, what am I going to do? How am I going to overcome this? Leaders persist and they push and they realize that you don't get instant success and you're going to have to fight giants along the way. There may be a giant in your heart. There may be a giant because you're going through something. Maybe something in your life. Right? Maybe there was a sin can't overcome. Maybe there's a thinking issue. Maybe there's a problem because of your disposition or the way you think about yourself, or a bad self-image, or things in front of you economically or financially or physically. Maybe there's people coming against you or huge obstacles financially But leaders persist, right? They persist. Oh, my computer just went out, you guys. It didn't persist. Screen just went blank. Persistence. These service and persistence are the two character qualities, right? So let's just go off script. This is from my heart. The idea of finishing well really is a heart of persistence. Persistence is those people that you knock down and they just keep getting back up. It isn't always the guy with the greatest technique, it's the guy with the greatest heart. The enemy can come at you and at you. Life can come at you and at you. Persistence is the thing that will give you victory, because if you go into the land and you're persistent and you serve, God is faithful then. Those two things, if you go in with the right heart to serve, the right attitude, with the greatest good in mind, and then you persist through it, you will get victory after victory. Will there be some defeats, some setbacks? Absolutely. So putting it together, I think over all these years, In regular Bible college, I had 13,000 students over those 30 some odd years of teaching. 13,000 students. Counting correspondence students and that kind of thing. Some of those were duplicates, right? They take me multiple classes, but in that, many went into ministry and began to serve and do these things. But most are not in ministry now. Most didn't persist. I think with Shepherd School, we've reoriented that, and we have a much, much higher success rate of guys going out and serving and being in ministry. And most of the churches in Albuquerque now, not most of the churches, a lot of the major churches and churches I know of have somebody on their staff or leading a ministry that have been a part of this school. Not just being well trained, but again, well trained. If you're well trained and have the character of persistence, long suffering is another way of saying it, right? Patience is another way of saying it. Persistence is honing down on a certain thing. Persistence is just not giving up, just not quitting. Getting knocked down, but deciding there's a different way, there's a better way. I'm gonna fight through it. I'm gonna learn through it. Persistence is having that attitude of, well, God's behind it, God's in it. Somehow it's gonna work out. Somehow it's gonna work out, right? There's not always a guarantee of success, but you don't fail if you persist. You just leave the outcome up to God. That's part of persistence. I'm going up against giants. What if I lose? So what? You persist. What if I make a wrong decision in doing that? So what? You persist. It's the guys who are still standing at the end win. They persist. Look at Paul. Look at 2 Corinthians when he goes through and he has to extol himself to this church that he planted that are rejecting him. And he's going, you guys, I hate to force me to brag on myself, right? I had been beaten 3 times, 40 lashes minus 1, 3 times, right? By the Jews, stoned, been shipwrecked a number of times, 3 days and 3 nights in the deep before they got rescued, before somebody came and helped out and God brought. How would you like spending out in the freezing ocean 3 days and nights? He goes, aside from bandits, perils that are out there and traveling, perils from countrymen, perils from the sea, perils from even the Jews, his own people, having been abased, having been blessed, having no money, having money, been in prison. He's a master at persisting, just not giving up. And you're not persisting because you're beating the odds. You're persisting because God's got your back. But it won't always go smoothly. So part of what I was sharing with some of the students and part of what I put out there, because sometimes students don't come up, they're just sitting back listening, they don't want to ask a question. But I put out there, like, what's your purpose in life? If your purpose in life is, I want everything to be easy. I want a utopia. I go, you guys are being handed with Marxism and communism, right? and these kind of things, socialism, they're marketing a utopia to you where they're telling you, well, robots are going to do everything. You're not going to need cash. You're going to live in your house. Everything will be supplied for you. It's paradise. It's utopia. No, it's not. Those kind of societies, there's a high rate of suicide. People who have fame and fortune, they have all the money and they have the servants and everything. Why do they go into alcoholism, drug use? Why do they go into these strange parties and all these things? They start freaking out about longevity and death, and now they're taking blood transfusion and drinking blood. Have you seen that new movement that they're doing out there with celebrities? Life is made better with challenges. And especially for men. We're made to overcome, to hit things head on, to figure out what needs to be changed. Life starts going backwards when we succumb and we give in. We give in to temptation, or we give in to an addiction, or we give in to complacency, or we give into these things. Look at retirees when they retire and they're not doing anything. We're just going to golf, and then they end up just sitting there in front of the TV, and they usually die within 5 years. Persistence is taking advantage of the life that God has created, and that having a purpose in life is making something that is worthwhile making, doing something that's worthwhile doing, accomplishing something that's worthwhile doing. And a lot of that may be in ourselves. That's why character is so satisfying when you begin to develop it. You're never shortchanged in it, right? Oh, I wish I could go back where I was addicted, or, on the street or whatever. Nobody really says that. But what gets you there at the highest level, the highest thing, is persistence. Because you can struggle in these things, but if you persist, you win out. You can struggle with things in your heart. You can struggle with fighting through things. But if you persist, I'm struggling, I'm not doing it right or whatever, but you just persist and you hang in there, man, you'll have success. Again, because God will have your back. But so many quit. So many don't see that. They think the highest quality of life is to have it easy, to not have a mess in ministry, to not be challenged character-wise. I don't want to be challenged character. I just want to do what I want to do. It's right in my own eyes, and I'll be happiest there. No, you won't. You won't. We're made to be overcomers. We're made to be engineers, to have ingenuity, to accomplish things, to build, to construct, to go beyond what we think we can do or need to do. Part of it came back, but I'm just going to go with what we got here. Right? If you understand this in life, that your end game and goal is not ease, but overcoming and actually multiplying those talents, right? You can go and bury it. That's easy. But to invest those talents, whether it be 5 or whether it be 2, that's what life is actually made in. You can't have genuine satisfaction and genuine happiness without obstacles that you overcome. I just can't think of that way, right? I can't think of anything that would, any kind of lifestyle or anything that exemplifies happiness apart from exercising your creativity, persisting in overcoming obstacles, personal objections, outside obstacles, and then accomplishing something that's worthwhile. Otherwise, you have really, what's your purpose in life other than breathing, right? Other than occupying a rocking chair. So persistence is that, it's that character quality of long suffering that isn't just I'm going to endure it. Persistence has that attitude of I'm persisting, but I'm moving forward in it. Right? There's an end game out of this long suffering, out of this thing that accomplishes something good. Whether it be in honing my character, becoming more Christ-like, doing something greater for my family, or for the world. You guys have been a part of the Shepherd School. You're going to go out. I expect you to persist. I expect you to serve. I expect you to conquer. I expect great things out of you guys. Every one of you. In what God has called you to do. Along with your talents and gifts. And if you understand that about life, then obstacles, the promised land, giants, aren't that big a deal. They're big, but you expect them. And when you encounter them, it's all the sweeter, the honey that you gather through it, right? All the sweeter the things that you gather through it. Those two things. If somebody comes into me, Pastor Scott, I can't go to your school. What are the two things I really, really need to make it in life, in ministry? And I would say, if I could only give you two things, I wouldn't start with knowledge. I would start with these two character qualities. Service, because the humility in that allows all the other character qualities to come about. And persistence, because you got to stick to it in your service to accomplish the other things. If you have the service, you have the right attitude, the right mentality, the other character qualities will follow. Persistence allows you then to follow through and get the knowledge, get the learning, get the expertise, get the, build those character qualities out, see the finished product that God's called you to. Those two things really happen. But those are often two of the quickest areas that people fail in. Can't find them in their service and things need to be done. And they want ministry to be easy. They want life to be easy. They want family to be easy. You just deal with it, honey. Right? They step out of it. Those are the two things that if you do those, you have the highest ratio of success that you can imagine. Highest ratio. Sabe? Comprende? Any questions? I'm going to open it up. You can ask me anything, and then we'll just do that. I've just called the study because it's still blank. Parts of it are still blank. Never had this happen. But we're also recruiting for the next school. All kinds of weird things have been happening. Huh, Josh? Josh is back there, right?
So what's the difference between persistence and attitude?
Persistence and attitude, yeah, the service. Love, right, is the attitude. Is that the question? Yeah.
So does the persistence come from the attitude? If you have a good attitude and you persist?
There's times I have to persist even when I have a bad attitude.
True. Okay.
Right? There's times where I'm angry, I'm hurt. Somebody's said something nasty, or they put something online, or they've lied about me. Churches had put out a thing, don't work with Pastor Scott, don't go to his school, bad things like that happen, right? And you just feel, what's the point? Right? I've not been the best father or parent through the week. I still have to persist. I still have to get up and teach. That's my calling, right? And so I have to correct my attitude, and that's part of the persistence is you won't always have the best attitude. You won't always have the best anything, but you push through it. That's another giant I got to overcome. That's another thing in my life that I persist through, right? so loving God and fearing God calls me to love on those critics and to persist and to keep pushing through. So sometimes it's not. That's why they're this twin, like twin blowers on your engine, right? They just add a lot of power to everything else. That love, that service, and that persistence just gives amplification to all the other character qualities. Any other questions? Anthony.
Actually, I have two. The last part of this module, do we have to turn it in? Do we have to get it done?
It would be good if you turned it in the last two. You don't have to do 10. 10's elective. Module 10, right? But the last two, and we're not going to discuss them though. You just turn them in.
Okay, and like now your tablet and stuff went off, and you could have chose to like, oh man, it went out, guys, I guess, pick it up next week. You persisted, you managed it, you worked through it, and it was good. It came out pretty good.
Thanks. Came out pretty good. Just pretty good? Yeah. But that's, and the other thing, people like asking me, do you get nervous doing that? Ask the pastor or whatever, and you're in there in front of, college professors and students or whatever. What if they ask you something you don't know? I don't care. I just don't care anymore what people think about me or if I mess up or do. I just don't care. I'm going to be there and I'm going to serve and I'm going to persist, and I don't have that big of an opinion of myself, honestly, right? I won't know everything. Nobody does except for God. So one of the things is, oh, my notebook went bad. People could be like, oh, well, that's embarrassing. I ain't embarrassed. I'm honestly not embarrassed. So maybe God wanted to have question and answer. I'll do it again next week a little bit too if you want to do that. But somebody else have a question here? Scott. Yeah?
You said that churches should not be a warehouse. They should be, I'm sorry, they shouldn't be, they should be a distribution center, not a warehouse. And I don't mean to, I'm going to ask a question. I know that some people, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm going to ask the question. If there are churches, and Levi Lusko is one of them. He was trained up here, and he moved up to Kalispell, the town I grew up in, and he took over a small theater as a church, and then he started having a second theater and simulcasting. Now he's all over the state, and he's simulcasting. I personally kind of have a bit of an issue with churches that do that, and is there I think you know where I'm going, but are they hoarding? I don't know their heart or anything. They seem like they're legit, but are they holding back other pastors that could be taking these churches and doing their own thing? And is I don't know if I'm asking it very well.
Yeah,
but,
it's not a bad thing. And so let's. That was second quarter, right, out of the book, Discipleship on Fire. So I believe we should be distribution houses, not warehouses, but it doesn't mean you can't have a large church, right? So there's great churches, large churches, mega churches, and they're training up people, and they're planting, and they're sending, and they're developing that, right? So, but the churches that aren't doing that at all, is it good what they're doing if they do a satellite church? Well, yeah, it's still good. I don't think it's necessarily the greatest good, right? And I fear because when you do that, it's good, and a lot of people are going to get saved, a lot of people are going to be ministered to. But if you do that, you lose that one pastor because it's kind of built around one individual, you're going to lose a lot. So we've seen this before when satellite churches they go nationwide, then the leader fails or falls. We saw this with Mars Hill. That 60% of those churches closed the doors. And about 40% scrambled, and finally they had somewhat of a pastor who was qualified to take over. But when you're doing that and you're not letting those pastors lead, so they had all these pastors at satellite churches, right? But when the leader was taken away, they weren't qualified enough or had enough experience to keep it going. And, well, I can't really speak to what their personal thinking is, right? Obviously, they think it's good and they're serving the Lord, and I do too. I just think the greater good would be how much more, because I've calculated it out, right? So we just go back to it. How much greater is it if you train leaders, right? So if Christ gives me the assignment, if he's my boss and he goes, I want you to open up this store, and I want you to make it as good as you can. Well, as good as I can is a big box store, right? And so lots of people can come through there. You can do millions of dollars a month. And he can go, well done, servant, right? But my mentality is, what if that could be a training center and we could just continue to open up other stores for my boss? And if we have a training center, even if I'm taken out or one store closes, you have all these other stores serving, right? So that's my mentality of serving him and having the talents, is you want to multiply those talents. Okay, you can multiply churches, but there's a weak pin in that if you take out that one pastor, and it may not be anything bad, but let's say somebody does sin and fall, there's a domino effect, right? If something happens to me today, every one of the churches that went out from here, and every one of the churches in Kenya, those 30 churches, they all continue. Every one of them. So just that's my heart. But again, not everybody has my mentality. Not everybody has been trained by me. So is it better that they have a satellite church there than no church? Absolutely. It's still good. I think there's a greater good that you can go the next step. And so I fear when we age out of some of these larger churches, and it's starting to happen, you're going to see satellite churches close, and you're going to see infighting and other things. To me, it would be better to raise up a pastor and put a pastor there, right? And let them have some autonomy and go for it. Is it messy? Yeah. Is it cleaner for you to oversee 30 satellite churches and you're the one responsible and you know the teaching at every one of them is good because you're there's a trade-off, right? And so if you do that, then you got to deal with messes and lawsuits and other stuff going on and another board, and are they going to raise up leaders and that sort of thing? So there's another level of complexity when you do that, but I think overall there's a huge payback and payoff, and especially if I've got to give accountability to the Lord, then at any time the enemy gets me, I mess up, or he just takes me home, it all runs, right? It all continues. So that's my philosophy, and but I don't begrudge them because it's still a tremendous amount of goods coming. Salvations are coming from all these satellite churches. I just think there's a what would you call it? Not a trap, but there's a danger in there that the enemy could exploit. Single point of failure, yeah. Good way of putting it. Thank you. Right. Any other questions, you guys?
Well, on that same one, like we said, we don't know what their thought process is, those megachurch pastors. I mean, we're just saying hypothetically, Maybe are they thinking, well, only my message is good enough to get out there. My trainees aren't good enough to go start a church. Only I have the right wordings. I mean, so that's
I think with some in the past, it's been prideful, right? And other things. I think for the most part, most of the guys leading these kind of churches, it's just kind of a trend, and everybody does it, and it works, and they see success. And it's much easier to launch a satellite church than going out and planting a church, because you've got a personality behind it, and the power of money, the power of the radio, or the power of the internet, or the power of already a ministry presence that's been successful, right? So it's a well-known speaker. He's out there. Oh, so-and-so's putting one of their churches here. It's a much higher success rate of doing a satellite church than planting it, right? And so there's a benefit to that. If you send out an unknown guy and he's got to work, and then also try to raise up a home study and plant and do that, it's difficult to do. So
I'll go start a church, and I'll just play Scott Tom videos in my church.
well, you know what? That's how Raul started. Raul played in his kung fu studio. He just played Chuck Smith tapes, right? Until finally they, got enough confidence, and he would teach a little bit, and it grew from there. Don't lock ourselves into any particular thing. Just what is the greatest good in the longest run, right? So that's because I've been taught that. That's the way I think. Not everybody's been taught that. And so you guys have been taught these ways of thinking that you now think critically in a very biblical way, not a worldly way. And because of that, you can question those things. But again, anybody going out, they're not a perfect pastor. I love them, absolutely love them, because they're on the front lines. They're serving, they're persisting. Even if they're not the best teacher or the best thing, man, God bless you, because it's so hard to do that, and so many people won't, that if they do that, I absolutely love every church planter. And even satellite churches, I don't, the only thing that bugs me if they say, well, you can't put a church there because we have a satellite church there. When they get territorial, then I know it's a pride issue. Then I know they're not trusting God. Then I know that there's a real issue here. Because are you telling me that your whole town is saved and going to that church? There's not any unbelievers in this town? That you have another church there, right? Hey, there's a reason they put car dealerships right next to one another. You ever notice that? So it's not bad if you have a church and then you have another church. Our church out in Los Lunas, right? Sunshine Church that just moved. They're in Church Row. There's like 5 churches all within like one block, right? Yeah, and so you know what? Just God will work it out. He'll work it out. So
recently for some reason there's like a little dispute on church YouTube among guys I like to listen to. It's about annihilationism, the belief of annihilationism, which is funny because I didn't even know that was like an actual doctrine that a lot of people hold on to, and it goes deeper in the view because we just got that Norman Geisler on Hell, and he actually breaks down why annihilationism isn't loving. And I agree. Like when I listened to Norman Geisler, I understood the greater good principle in that, where it's not loving just to completely annihilate the existence of someone, right? And so I guess it's some guy on a podcast who is a prominent Christian in the world, and so he put out that belief and made his arguments, and so then someone reacts to it, another Christian, and then someone else reacts to that. That's kind of like the flavor. You told me that they write books too. They used to write books, so now it's more fast paced in the responses. But
it led to me to kind of a bigger question is that I find it interesting that there's just so many things that Christians can just debate on. Like, I mean, it's so interesting that here we are, like, this is something where we're spending our energy in whether annihilationism or this is that, but it's not just that, it's just across the board. Like, why did God allow just so much? I mean, it makes sense why there would be diversity in the body, but almost like it's like too much diversity. And I guess what makes sense that we're just human, but is there like, especially for us, like learning all these things, for me, I could get so caught up in all these different arguments and just like go down these rabbit holes that at some point I guess you just got to give it up, right? Like at some point you have to pick the path that seems the best argument, and the other ones you just have to let them go. And so how did you navigate that in your path of kind of being an apologist and answering questions? Because you had to choose that too, right? Choosing the best arguments and letting go here and there and kind of picking where you stand in certain beliefs. And
Yeah, I don't get picked on too much like some of these guys, right? Because I'm under the radar on a lot of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I don't get a lot of that. Occasionally I get pushback, or I get, and I don't read a lot of the comments anymore because there's a lot of guys who put stuff in there, and then you go. Usually what I do is one time I just defend why I believe in what I believe, right? And we go through the historical grammatical method, but not only that, the nature and character of God, because that's your trump cards. That's what, if it's not in those two, then you got a wrong doctrine, right? And you have to start over, or if it fits in there, you got it. So I explain that, and then after that, they wouldn't argue anymore. I just let them have the last word, and I don't even respond anymore. They think they won the argument because they got that, but it's not worth my time. It's honestly not worth my time. If I listen to their argument, I look at it, do they have a reasonable point, right? Because it's a critic type thing. But if it's something where like you're just not getting it, right? You don't get the greater good principle, or you don't get nature of God, you don't realize that this is actually going to be denying another place, then I just drop it, because it really isn't worth my time, and it isn't worth other people going through, and not many people are going to read the comments and you got this video. A lot of that turns into pride or whatever, that you got to have the last word, or you got to be right on that or whatever. And so I think on critical areas, or areas that might do damage or hurt Christianity or put God in a bad light, maybe you have to push it farther than that. But on something that annihilation, or some of these other things, well, it's not going to change what God's going to do.
It's basically understanding it's not an argument, it's just a discussion. So if you take it away from an argument and just make it a discussion, you don't have to be right.
Yeah, you can make it a discussion, but they're going to want to argue with you. So they're going to put you down. I'm in one right now that I'm going to give him the last say, right? So he's denying the rapture. He put it out there. He's a local teacher, and he basically was saying that people need to stop believing in the rapture, read the church fathers, and get on with life, type thing. And I'm like, all right, am I going to pass this one up or what? Right? He says, stop believing in this escapism. Right? So I go to Luke 21:36. Jesus says, after he says, pray that you escape all these things that are about to come to pass, which is the tribulation period, and to stand before the Son of Man. I go, yeah, I agree. We should stop looking to church fathers. Let's actually read Jesus, right? And so he came back, and he basically called me that I was taking it out of context and all this stuff, right? And if he would only know what about context. Huh? I heard it.
context is king.
Context is king, right? I'm the guy who always goes to context. And so I said, well, show me where it's out of context. And he didn't. He just showed me an alternative thing at 1 Corinthians 10 where God's given you a way to escape temptation. And I said, well, God's wrath isn't temptation, right? And in there, he literally says you can escape these things. So I just left it at that. He'll reply to it. I'm not going to even go back and read it. So you just kind of let him go on things like that. State the truth. Rarely do I get into something like that, but when it's somebody's destroying the belief for someone else or calling somebody, idiots for believing biblical doctrine or whatever, it's like, dude, come on, you kind of think, it just bothers me because he's hurting the body of Christ, but it's also very arrogant to come in there and just lambaste in social media everybody else who holds that doctrine, right? So there's no reason for him to do that. So I just wanted to present it in there. If somebody wants to read it, here's the opposite view, and then that's it. Just leave it go on that kind of thing. I don't always have to be right, and I leave the last word for them. They'll think that they got the upper hand. That's fine. People can read it, and then people are smart. People are smart. They can figure it out when you put the truth down, right? So, but I listen to those kind of things. I listen to there's whole argument whether God can have emotions or not. Is he outside of time, and how could he have emotions? Because, type of thing. And so I listen to a lot of those arguments and these kind of things going back and forth. I don't bring them in to hear much, but I always learn something new.
Did you ever, this is the last part of it, did you ever fixate, because like sometimes I feel like I fixate too much on something. Did you ever feel that way in your kind of, did you ever feel like you're fixating on something too much and you had to just kind of let it go or get to the bottom of, like there's certain things that I'm like trying to get to the bottom of, but I don't even know if there is a bottom to it.
It just depends. My personality is to fixate. I go all in on something. So, for example, when I find a new theologian or a new topic, I may be 3 months, and that's all of the audio files I'm listening to, right? So that may equal 3 months. That may equal 90 to 100 audio files on it. People are like, that's kind of fixating on this one micro topic, right? But I want to know that I know, type of thing. And it's not for everybody, but I think fixation, as long as it doesn't become emotional, is a power and a gift that allows you to know the complexities of something, and then if you can then take that, come to a conclusion, and especially if you can take that fixation and then give it out in a simplistic format, then it's a very valuable thing to fixate, right? People can become great. People who can fixate on just playing one musical instrument can become great because they just become fixated with it, right? But if you're fixated because of pride, I got to show someone up, or if you're fixated because I want to know the truth or I'm trying to help somebody, it's a very good thing, right? But usually what happens with people like that, the fixation wanes after a period of time, and then there's something else to hook on to, right? But make sure that that fixation leads to something good. There's people who fixate on something, and then it's of no earthly value, no heavenly value. They fixate on it, and it's a grand waste of time and their talents, right? So somebody can fixate and concentrate on something. That's a great talent. And so I just think of what would be the greatest use of that. So if it's knowing Catholic doctrine or knowing these things, there's a lot of good that can come from that, right? So let it come to a head, and then fixate on enough so that you can explain it simply to someone else. Because that's the greatest value. If you can explain it at a, upper graduate level, great. But it's only valuable to a few, right? It's got to be able to then be transmitted at the simplistic levels. So all can gain that. Huh? Anybody else?
I'm gonna back the bus up a little bit here. More so towards like the satellite churches and everything. And I'm gonna give examples just from what I've seen, and how my view changed with them. Really, we have to keep our mind open to: are they serving the kingdom? You know, are they trying to do their best with what they believe is going to work? Because, like, for example, right after COVID, and they started letting all the church doors open back up and people go back in. The church I was serving at the time, our senior pastor comes in, he has COVID, right? And this is a church, we have multiple services on Sunday. Well, he decides 30 minutes before church is supposed to start, he's shutting it down because he's sick. We have our associate pastor there, well, both of our other pastors are there. And it's like, well, why, you know, even some of the elders are like, well, why can't one of them teach? It's like, well, he teaches on Friday, and he's busy with other stuff, so I'm not going to impose on him. So we're just going to shut it down. And it's just like, whoa, like, just blew us away. Like, what's going on here? This isn't right. But for him, it was very much like, no, it's me. It's my show, because this goes back to this church that's all about the entertainment, right? It's like, can't be fixated on him. We're not doing it. And then flash forward a year later, I'm serving at a church up in Santa Fe. Snowstorm had just come through. My car was broken down. Since it just snowed, I couldn't ride my motorcycle up. I had no way to get up there. So it's like, okay, it's a bummer. You know, I called, explained the situation. They're very understanding. A friend of my wife's like, hey, why don't you come with us? Like, okay, cool. You guys come by and pick us up? Sure. So we go with them, and we pull up, and lo and behold, it's a satellite church. And I'm sitting there thinking, and this just my mindset at the time is like, oh, great. We're going to be watching a sermon on a screen. If I wanted to do that, I'd just sit home and turn on the TV, right? And I know I'm not alone on that. A lot of us think that way. And we go in, everything starts fine. You know, the band does their thing, but I'm being a bit of a curmudgeon. I'm not open-minded as I should be. And working in ministry, you know, you'd think I'd know better, but, you know, I fall into the same trap as everybody else. Well, the campus pastor comes up, he, you know, does his thing, you know, opens up the prayer, they go to the screen. Not even 5 minutes into the message, technology failed. Couldn't get the feed. They did not waste any time. They did things the right way. The campus pastor went up and he said, you know what? Don't know if we're going to be able to get this up or not. I'm going to change gears. I have another message that's prepared. And he went in and he delivered his message. Now, some people got up like, oh, the feed's not there. They got up and left. You know what? They missed a wonderful message. It was outstanding. It's one of the best I'd heard in a long time. You know, so there is a right way and there is a wrong way. And with some of these satellite campuses, you know, we need to be open-minded to the fact that, you know, they are building people up. Even though we might not necessarily see it, there's things going on behind the scenes that we just don't know. And there are definitely willing, capable servants there that we need to give a chance, because we just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Giving the gospel, that's not a bad thing. Let's close, you guys. We're a little bit over. I thought we wouldn't be this late since technology failed, right? Next week, let me just ask though, next week we're going to gather. What would you guys like to do? Just kind of an open, bring something potluck thing, or I know I haven't planned it very well, but what would you guys like? I don't have to plan everything. I'd like to know what you guys like. There'll be a lot of food, right? So,
That's okay, some people ask them to take home for lunch.
yeah. Do we have a schedule on that? We didn't do a schedule for the last one, right?
We did, what we were talking about was possibly maybe the mid-course. Meeting next week. That's kind of what happened when.
That's right. That's what we've done in the past, right? All right. We'll reach out. Yeah, Michael Tom couldn't be here tonight. He's having fun shooting weapons. He's qualifying for his certification there for the new police department. So He's out there all day shooting and stuff. So he texted me. He did qualify on weapons he's never used before, right? So got in there and had a little bit of practice, and he did that. Proud of that boy. He's good. All right, we'll figure something out. Mentors, if you guys decide you want to bring something, let me know through the week. But we'll have some stuff here next week.
We're gonna do a potluck, and everybody's gonna bring something. Well, not everybody.
Yeah. Never mind. Anthony, you had to get in one before the year ended. You,
Thinking was like, you know, like the plates and the silverware and all that stuff. We could leave the next class all that stuff, so that way, you know, that's our
yeah.
team, you know what I mean?
Anthony's always giving. He's always serving. That guy. We'll figure it out through the mentors and stuff. The Minotaurs. You may just get tuna fish sandwiches, but we'll have it here for you. Oh, some people like tuna fish sandwiches. Tuna fish sandwiches are good. So let's close in prayer, you knuckleheads. Let's stop. Father, thank you. Oh my gosh. When we said 2 years go so fast, oh man, does it go so fast, Lord. It goes so fast. Thank you for these men. Thank you for your work in them. Thank you for their hearts. May you be glorified in us. Be glorified in what you're doing for your people and for Shepherd School, not only here, but those men that are out there in Kenya waiting to plant 30 churches, Father, and another 100 or so coming up behind them. And Father, those in other areas, we pray for Sri Lanka. Maybe, Father, that will open doors to Malaysia and India and Pakistan. Lord, your will be done. But let's glorify you. Let us glorify you, Father. Let us take land. Let us move forward, Father. Let us overcome giants, even though we're small, Father. Thank you for all that you do. I just am excited about what you're going to do with these men. And so, Father, show yourself strong for them in Jesus' name. Amen. All right.